Hi, everybody. And with heavy hearts, we begin this episode of Dojo Talks. Today, we're going to talk about um, someone who I considered a friend, um, a a really, really, really talented member of our chess community, Danya. And we don't necessarily have a specific idea or agenda of what we're going to talk about here today. As Jesse was saying, it's partly maybe just the three of us processing a little bit amongst ourselves and with you, other people out there who surely have been touched by Danya, and we want to share some memories and stories and nice reflections and moments about him together. Um, so,
When,
um,
when did you first meet him, David? 'Cause you guys are both
yeah,
from the Bay Area.
yeah. Danya is from San Francisco. I'm from Berkeley, so a few miles apart, and that means we played at the same chess clubs and same chess tournaments and so forth for like a chunk of our lives. I'm older than him, so he like appeared at some point when I'd already been playing in tournaments. And then of course he moved up and on to, a very strong grandmaster level circuit of events, right? That went beyond me. But for a few years we shared some of the same events. And when I first saw him, it would have been playing at the Mechanics Institute. And he had an older brother and a father who were almost
And
always with him at tournaments at that point. I don't know offhand exactly how old he was, but he was definitely a kid. He was definitely still, kind of cute. And, they would be, carrying around his stuff for him and that kind of thing, like supporting him and, coming to his board with him and so forth. But I based on my memories, which are not very visual, I can't tell you if he was, 7 years old or
mm,
8 years old or 6 years old. Um, but his his dad had something for him to sit on because the chairs weren't tall enough for him at the Mechanics Institute, right? So his
sure.
dad brought something to boost him up um, to play, and he was a very competent player already,
When
at like the most minuscule of ages and sizes. Um, and then within within a year or two of him popping onto my radar, he was up to like 2000, and how young experts are dangerous, like they're powerful players, and he started up a rivalry with Sam Shankland around that point, who was like the top student from the East Bay Chess Club that we had on the other side of the bay. Um, and they played each other just a million times. Then eventually they each made master, and then I had the opportunity to play them a couple times each before they passed on further. Um, but yeah, I always thought when seeing him as a kid that he and his brother and his dad seemed like a really cool chess family, and um, I see that now that maybe I'd slightly missed that there was a lot of pressure on Danya, whether from himself or from his father or somewhere, for him to be like really good. But I always felt like there was a lot of love and respect between the three of them. I didn't see his mother as much, right? I mean, I'm sure she was loving and supportive of Danya at home, but she wasn't at the tournaments all the time, like the boys were. Um, I've seen lots of different kinds of chess parents and chess siblings, coming around to tournaments together, and uh, I thought that they were a lovely chess family.
It's,
Jesse, did you meet Danya when he was younger?
oh yeah. Yeah. In fact, one of the conversations that David and I have had for years is like, how do you recognize chess talent? And one
Yeah.
of the things we've talked about many times is how a kid reacts to a loss. Are they so crushed that they can't go on, but are they also like a little bit mad at themselves, you know? And whenever I think of that conversation, the first thing that comes up for me is the memory I have of playing Danya. And I believe it was end of 2007. It could have been end of 2006. I'm trying to get the math right, but he had just won the world under 12. There's a beautiful image that's resurfaced where he's on the cover of Chess Life after winning the world under 12. You can go check out.
Yeah.
And anyways, I played him shortly after that at Vegas. It was like a final round. And at that time, it was much rarer to face kids in open tournaments. It was much rarer that you would have a
Yeah.
kid at that age competing at some of the top boards. It was always the same old Russian dudes at that point, a totally different scene. And I'm playing him in the last round, and I don't know who he was, but no clue, you know. And he was playing the King's Indian as he did forever. He played the King's Indian then as white too, gained a very good intuitive understanding of the structures, and continued doing that his whole life.
Yeah.
And so we had this fascinating King's Indian endgame, and I won at the end in kind of old man style. And he was very upset. I remember he was crying. And that's what I think of when I think of a strong player. Like, he didn't give up just because he lost, but he was definitely hurt. He was pissed that it went down the way it did. And I was like, right, that's the sign of a strong player. Yeah. So that
Yes.
was my first interaction with him.
Yeah.
Um, and then me and David got to hang out with him a bit because he came and trained with us at the GM house.
Yeah.
So that was,
Jesse, I want to
yeah,
say one
go
other
ahead.
thing about the under 12 thing.
Yeah.
I remember that when he came back from the under 12 thing, it was like a celebration. Like
Mm,
everyone at the mechanics was pumped. He was
yeah.
like, feted and celebrated.
Yeah.
And it was kind of like a community thing, right? Like, I just want to really quickly interject that
No, no,
that's
no,
like
no.
a really beautiful moment. I remember he was so small then compared to the other people in the master sections, like you say,
Right.
right?
Brilliant.
Like there was no one else his age who was playing at that level in the Bay Area at the time. And so it was very easy for everybody to root for him, right? Like our little monster went out and beat every other little monster in the world, and
Yeah.
like we can feel better when the little monster beats us up, or inevitably passes us, depending on where we were in his path.
Yeah.
Uh,
Yeah.
so okay, of course I grew up in SoCal, so I didn't meet Danya until a little bit later. Um, I'll tell you guys the first time I met him, but the first time I heard about him was during a lesson because he and I actually shared a coach for some time. Uh, I am Armin Ambartsumian,
Okay. Yeah.
Mm,
who I worked with for a couple of years when I was like maybe 16, 17. And Danya's a few years younger than me, so he would have been maybe 12, 13 at the time.
Concur.
And I remember Armin mentioning Danya because he was just like so impressed with his like play and his talent. I just remember him talking about him frequently. He'd be like, "Oh, Danya found this in this position. Like Danya found this." I remember very specifically he showed me a game in the King's Indian that Danya played. I don't know why. I wasn't playing the King's Indian back then, so I don't know why he was showing me this game in particular. But he was very impressed with Danya, who found this like I guess like intuitive positional pawn sacrifice, not very textbook, not very thematic. But once you see it, it's like, oh wow, it's like very strong, very intuitive. He gets this long-term positional compensation. And he was like 12 years old when he played this game. And I remember being like very, very impressed, thinking just like, oh, I'm never gonna play it's, it's, uh, it's crazy. So I met him a couple of years later. I played some tournament at a Blitz tournament at the Mechanics, and I think he was there. There was a number of players there. And I won a book as my prize, and I decided to choose his book because I didn't have it yet. Also amazing that he wrote a book at the age of 14. on
Yeah.
positional chess, which is like a very good book. I mean, people generally think that book is fantastic,
Yeah.
which is wild. I think I picked up his Endgames book and asked him to sign it because he was there. Um, and I remember feeling like he was honored that I asked him to sign my book. Like he kind of
Yeah.
knew who I was already. I don't know what my level was at the time, but I think maybe I was like already writing articles and stuff. And so I remember feeling like very insane that like he was respecting me. He's like, oh, you want me to sign the? He's like yeah, of course. Like he was already Danya. He was already like this like super prodigy, and I remember just feeling like, wow, he has like such a tremendous respect for others and the game. I mean, it's like it was very obvious.
Yeah. That he was able to write that book at that age was incredible.
Yeah. Um, so yeah, I was touched yesterday by just all the messages that people were writing about him. I mean, it's clear he had an effect on so many people, not just that knew him. It was kind of like two surprising things. First of all, like everyone that knew him actually shares a very similar opinion that he's just like brilliant, super funny,
Yeah.
extremely well spoken, kind, interesting. Um, and everyone that hasn't met him, like all of his online fans, also clearly felt like I saw so many messages yesterday of people saying like this is the first time I'm crying about someone I never met. I saw a lot of messages like, and so yeah, very try. I feel like it's a huge loss for the chess world, just like
Oh yeah. It's dramatic.
catastrophic.
I think people are going to be feeling it for a long time, and because they feel it so much, they're going to be talking about it for a while. Like, what is it? They're going to talk about stuff that we're not talking about today, right? But like, what does this mean about the world that we're living in? That somebody's so wonderful and so sensitive and so brilliant, had met such a bad fate, in our chess world.
Yeah, I felt a deep sense of meaninglessness, honestly.
Mm.
Um, it's kind of weird and interesting, right? You know, I have kind of a busy life, and it's rare that I sit around and navel gaze at the meaningless of life, but that definitely happened with this incident. And I think part of it, well, a large part of it is simply because I admired him, and I generally don't feel jealousy, but there was something akin to jealousy, I guess you could say, that I felt toward him, where he was just such a beautiful being that I was like, oh, I wish I had that kind of thing,
Oh, I've definitely felt that. Yeah.
you know.
Like, and there are times where I felt like like our entire project is totally inadequate while Danya's out there like making content because he's obviously much stronger than us as a chess player, and I felt like he's more articulate and explains things better
Yeah.
than we do. So it's like I've always thought he's just like the number one chess commentator um, in the
Yeah.
world.
Yeah, I mean, obviously chess is like the main thing we think about, but I actually remember like that I that I found it like mind-boggling how I wasn't able to keep up with his puns. I know that's not like the main thing or something, but I was gonna commentate with him, and like I'd seen him like, obviously like I'd seen him making puns on other broadcasts, we'd even like talked about his puns together at some point, you know, and so I prepared puns for the broadcast, right? So I was like, okay, here, like, and I made like a whole cheat sheet, Kostya. Like,
Right.
here are like all the players who are like likely to be at the top of this tournament who are competing, like the top 10, 15 players. So like I wrote puns about all their names, right? Um, but when like if you ever like talk to a player who's like too much better than you, their like calculation is just like too fast. Like
Yeah.
any variation you see, as soon as you say it, they're like, yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, they're like, okay, like they get it the moment you say it, and then they're like, but then blah 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 blah, and you're like, whoa, now I can't even, right? It's like every time I dropped one of my like puns, he just like had that like instantaneous little like, smirk grin
Hmm.
recognition. Like you like caught it like every time, even when I like slip it in so you barely hear the difference in the pronunciation or something. And then he was just like bam, bam, bam. And I was like, whoa, whoa. And like and he's like coming up with it as he goes. It's just like I think I'm like, how do you keep track of language that fast? Like have every word at your disposal so quickly, and yeah, I know like, chess is more important to us than puns, but for me it was similar to that chess experience when somebody's just too many levels above you and all you can do is be like, okay, I just sit here and say, wow. Like
That's so, yeah. No, I think I've had that experience commentating with it. So, yeah, it's just like I feel like he's a better chess player than me, and he's like funnier.
yeah.
So, like, what am I adding to this?
What do I bring? You make him look good.
But no, it's a part of it. I mean, his impressions also, I think, were top notch, like
Is it?
first class. I mean, dude was just all around entertainer.
Yeah.
A couple memories I wanted to share. In I didn't remember that game, but I Googled, when I had played him, and I actually had done a video about that. There's a defunct site I worked on called Chess Lecture, and they posted that YouTube. They posted on YouTube, so it's called The Talented Mr. Naroditsky. The like sound is terrible. Everything 2008. It was a totally different, you know, recording platform back then. Anyways, it was amazing for me to rewatch that because even though I won the game, I was like, oh yeah, this kid has a real positional grasp that's very surprising for his age.
Yeah.
Um, and also, one of the things that I found so interesting, maybe something I was jealous of too, is so he came to our session at the GM house where we had Lev Sakis. And of all the training sessions I've done, I think this was my favorite, where this guy, Lev Sakis, was like one of the top players in the world, 1980, wins the USSR championship with Kasparov. And at this point, he's living in Israel and is very, very unhealthy physically, but just a joy to study with. Anyways, he's staying there at the GM house, and the level of filth that the guy was doing at the house is just legendary. There's so many, like, people still talk about the levels of filth that was going on with Sakis. I don't even remember exactly what it was, but the reason I'm bringing up the story is Naroditsky has this really cool dad who's this kind of eccentric Russian mathematician guy who I think made a lot of money with stocks and stuff. He was very relaxed. He took Danya around, had an appreciation of chess. And I think all of us, well, a lot of American kids who didn't have access to a chess education are jealous. It was like, oh my God, what a beautiful thing. Because the father was like taking him around, but I didn't feel like the father was really pushing him that hard, but did everything to support him. And case in point, case in point, despite the filth of Sakis, they were like, yeah, Sakis, come hang out at our house. And so he went and hung out at Naroditsky's house and trained him for at least a couple weeks. And the level of filth there got even more legendary. More legendary. Now, if I was now that I'm a father, imagine this, and like to tolerate them like really unhealthy, grimy Russian dude in your house for the sake of your son's chess education. Well, that's amazing, dude. That's amazing.
Sorry, could you just clarify? Are we talking? Because I just read Danny's book. So are we talking about like Igor Ivanov levels?
Yes.
Like,
oh,
okay.
worse, dude. Worse.
Worse.
No,
Yeah.
Igor Ivanov was in some ways fundamentally clean. He was just a drunk. This was a whole new level.
Okay.
I mean, we had to do a whole deep clean after that, dude.
So you were,
And let
okay,
me
you were
just
being
say the
pretty
GM
literal.
house was not a paragon of cleanliness, but it had reached a certain stage after Sakis was there. And then I'm just imagining what it was like with like 2 weeks of Sakis over at Naroditsky's house. But I'm just saying the dad put up with that. And that's where I'm like, so the things about
Yeah.
Naroditsky that I was jealous of, I was like, or just like, oh, that would be amazing to have, was this dad who was like laid back, but helping him in every way, letting, this guy live at his house as an example.
Yeah.
Um, and then to be so smart, dude. The guy was so naturally intelligent. I think a lot of chess players, who knows if they're actually smart, but Naroditsky was legitimately smart. And then, he has the chance to go off to Stanford. And I talked to him. I remember because, I did a PhD in philosophy and he was interested in that kind of thing. And arguably, that's something he should have forgone and just done chess. But in any case, he got to have that beautiful experience at Stanford, which I wish I had had. That's another thing. Like he got to go to. I was like, oh, that's another cool thing. Uh,
I
and
mean, I think it's good he did it, Jesse, because he
yeah,
was genuinely interested,
yeah,
And like, could he have been even better at chess if he didn't do anything else? Maybe,
maybe.
but was his life richer because he pursued another interest? Probably.
Yeah, no, I think I heard Naka yesterday, and I'm sure I've heard this opinion from other players that they think Naroditsky would have been well over 2,700 if he didn't go to college. Because
Mhm.
basically he was just that talented. And
I agree.
but I agree with you guys. I mean, going to Stanford sounds like a very cool experience as well. So
Yeah.
and I mean, yeah, he turned out to be huge content creator, one of the world's best commentators. Maybe he didn't reach his classical ceiling, but overall, I think I mean, was doing very well for himself.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
So here's a little thing that stands out to me with Danya. So normally you've got kind of like you may be friendly, but also rivals with a lot of other players on the chess circuit, right? And so, um, as you go around, like one of the things you carry with you is kind of like the tally of your personal life match slash score with some other player, right? So, I could be at breakfast with Kostya, talking about, the weather in Spain or something like that. And in the back of each of our heads is like how many times we've played each other, like what our score is, what
Really,
openings we
boss?
used against each other. Every chess player's got that
Okay.
like sticking with them. You're like, oh, like I love this guy, but he's beaten me, 3-1. And like, I don't know if I can ever like equalize it or whatever. It's there. It's there. It's not there for you, Jesse. You're more competitive than I am.
I don't know, but not like that score thing. Anyways, I don't
Okay.
want to
I think
interrupt.
that's
Good.
there for everybody. And
Okay.
and then I think on top of that, and I guess I'm wrong, but on top of that, I think a lot of people fondly remember their wins against you.
Uh,
And, they don't really need to focus on their losses against you.
uh-huh. Yeah.
Because which is partly maybe like a survival mechanism because if I have to play you tomorrow and it's like just deeply weighing on me the ways you've beaten me and I'm not really thinking about the ways I've beaten you, then I don't have the belief to go up against you the next game, right? Like but anyway, what I found was interesting is like to me, a lot of other people will bring up the games that they've won against you in conversation as well. They'll be like, "Oh yeah, I remember like you used to play this opening and then I beat you with it so badly." Blah blah blah. But Danya, when I would talk with him, he would always bring up the games that I'd won against him. He would always like every time we would talk about chess or games or something like that, he would do it in a way that was like very generous towards me,
Yeah.
and even like this game where he like beat me really badly, he would kind of like downplay that, right? He'd be like, well, you were outplaying me, you had a good game, and it's something happened, and then like the other game, and then the games that I won, he'd be like, oh, like you crushed me, you were so far like above me at that point, I didn't know what. So it was just so generous in that
Gracious.
way,
Yeah, incredibly
you
gracious.
know and maybe you guys don't think about that as much as I do, the like the opponent thing or whatever, but that's where I remember like just how like kind he was and how he made me feel good about, like I could tell that he's going out of his way to make me and other people feel good about
Uh-huh.
ourselves.
Yeah,
Yeah, you're
actually,
not
I
the
want to
only.
add to that. So my final time I met him, I played a tournament in Charlotte in 23. And I think to my mind, that's like Naroditsky was at the top of his game there. That was before the whole Kramnik nonsense. And he was one of the top social media chess people in the world, the top three in any ways, right? And he was so famous, and everybody is coming up to him for his autograph and yada yada.
Yeah.
And I'm just some chump GM, but he kind of went out of his way to do a little chit chat and hi with me when I was, when in terms of let's call it social standing or whatever you want to say, I'm just a peon in relationship to this guy, and just in I don't know, in respect of the times we had had together before that, he was gracious and took a little time for the chump GM, and I was like, oh, that's really nice that he did that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Um, I I don't. I've only had maybe a handful of conversations with him. Like we hung out in Utah a few years ago. We were on this retreat with a bunch of streamers, and he was
Uh,
there. It was like me and him and Eric Rosen and Grandmaster Gary and a few others. And that was super fun. And then one time I visited him in Charlotte at his place, and we hung out with like the Charlotte crew. Um, so I never felt like I was really that close to him. But whenever I talked to him, he was just like so open, so authentic.
uh,
Like I felt like I knew him. I felt like I knew him
yeah,
like really well. I
Yeah.
mean, he was just, I mean, on stream he's always presented a very like proper and correct persona, which I've always been very impressed by. Like I remember there was a time when he and Naka were having a lot of drama, and his Naka's fans were going into his chat and attacking him. His fans were going into Naka's chat and attacking him. And I remember him always being like telling his fans like, don't attack Naka, don't attack Kramnik. Like I have huge respect for these guys. Like I remember him always trying to keep the peace.
Yeah.
Um, but when I'm hanging out with him in person, I want to say like his filter is definitely off. And he's saying stuff that I would never imagine him saying on stream, and he's being like super open and funny. I mean, he's a very different side to him. And I remember just always appreciating just how genuine he was being
Yeah.
in
But I
person.
do think that like the peacefulness is genuine as well, Kostya,
Oh,
right? I,
absolutely. Yeah,
I
yeah,
think
yeah.
he was a very pro peace kind of person. That seemed to be his
uh,
personal and political outlook.
I mean, I would say he definitely had a bit of like a darker side to him. Like, you know, um, uh, I'm sure he did get angry
Mhm.
at people, right?
Mhm.
But he would always try to express it. Like he would always try to be very responsible with how he expresses his emotions, because he knows like the big platform he has and how people are gonna react to his words. And if he says something, he knows like people are gonna go out and start like leaving nasty comments to other people, right? So he's always just had this like huge respect for the responsibility
yeah.
that he carries.
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
yeah, I mean I find the whole thing incredibly sad and tragic.
Yes, indeed.
Okay, well, should we leave it there?
Yeah, I don't know if you guys have any other stories you want to tell or
Um, yeah, no, I don't know. Not at the moment. Things are coming in and out of my mind with the emotions and all. But yeah, I just really I just really liked him a lot. It was super fun to, do things with him, or right, like work on the chess team, the chess league together. It's always really great, and there was always so much potential with anything he touched because of his talent. I remember like on this subject of peace, Kostya, I remember like a stream where he was like trying to get people to sort of make intellectual progress on political questions.
Yeah.
It's kind of like that's part of what I mean about like I feel like peacefulness was like a real genuine part of him. Like he was trying to be like, what are things we can agree on? Right? Like you've got some disagreement, but he'd like pull it back. Like, are there any basic values we have in common or anything, any propositions we can agree on? You know, and it was like an emotionally appropriate way of trying to reason with and discuss things with people. And it was also like intellectually rigorous in a sense, right? He was like really trying to like, how can you discuss something with each other and like advance your thoughts and ideas together, right? When you disagree with somebody, can you move forward and advance your understanding or their understanding and um you know make progress on a disagreement. And he was doing it like really, really well.
Yeah. I don't know what to say. I guess we should offer condolences to his family, his friends, all his fans. Like, I'm sure he won't be forgotten.
No, for sure. Yeah, I'm going to be thinking about him, you know, today and on all, you know, future days again and again and again and again, and not the only one. And yeah, be missed. We were lucky to have him while we had him. All right, everybody, that's this episode of our podcast. And yeah, I'm gonna just say one little something out there for all of you and all of us in this world. Just one little piece of life advice from me is stay close to your friends or families or loved ones, you know, like stay close to each other. And your friends and the people around you, if you keep them around you, they'll help you be the best you can be. Um, you know, we all make each other stronger and better by going through things together. So stick with each other.